Cold steel shoes the devil's weight. Justice twisting in the hands of fate. America's shadows where secrets lie. Dr. Currie liars cut through the sky. America's criminologist calling you near. Tales of the law in the atmosphere. Echoes of crime breaking the chain. Truth finds us all through the pain.
And here's America's Criminologist, Dr. Currie Myers.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to America's Criminologist, another episode. I'm Dr. Currie Myers, retired Major County Sheriff, former Special Agent, State Trooper. Also spent 15 years in the world of academia, don't hold that against me, serving as a school dean and as a professor teaching criminology. This show, where we talk about crime, culture, and the foundations that sustain a civil society. I have a new book coming out in the spring of 2027. It's called The Rise of the Feral Man and the Return from Feral Man. As you know, I often talk about the elements of feral man, a wilding of humans has predominantly occurred really within the last decade or so. This is going to be a 2-volume examination of America's moral and cultural crisis. The first volume, Rise of Feral Man, explains how we lost our way. The second volume, The Return of Feral Man, offers a practical roadmap for restoring the 3 important pillars of society: faith, family, and formation. So stay tuned for more updates as we get closer to those release dates. And always, if you want to check out my work in applied criminology, criminal justice, ethics, all those things, you can visit my Substack page at drcurriemyers.substack.com. This segment of America's Criminologist is brought to you by Real Resilience. That's REEL, Resilience. It's a transformative program helping inmates prepare for successful reentry. It uses inspirational films and guided discussions. Real Resilience teaches practical tools to build resilience, strengthen relationships, and restore hope for the future. It's real learning through real stories where positive choices are modeled, not just preached. Real resilience, because reentry isn't just release, it's a second chance done right. Okay, here is my daily riff. One of the hallmarks of professional policing in the 21st century is moving from a reactive response to proactive prevention. Evidence-based policing models, which I am a huge proponent of, we don't use it enough, uses a combination of data, it uses a combination of research, validated practices to identify what actually works in reducing crime and victimization. And with today's technology, we have all this data right at our disposal, and yet we can't get to it most of the time in order to actually implement evidence-based policing. Now, predictive applications, when used responsibly and within the constitutional boundaries of the United States, can help law enforcement identify patterns, recognize emerging threats, and intervene earlier in the violence cycle. The goal isn't to predict the future with certainty, it's to better allocate resources, improve decision-making, and potentially prevent tragedies before lives are lost. That's the promise of evidence-based policing. Smarter strategies, better outcomes, safer communities. In short, my friends, law enforcement agencies possess enormous amounts of information, but most of it remains locked away in reports, databases, records, and often used only after an event has already occurred, if at all. The future of policing lies in leveraging advanced AI-driven systems capable of rapidly retrieving, connecting, and analyzing information across multiple sources to identify relationships, patterns, and potential threats. And humans cannot do this alone. It's called volume overload. They do not have the capability. We don't have the manpower to be able to do it. AI is our friend. We can't be afraid of it, and we have to be able to use it responsibly in the future. These technologies can help transform policing into a more evidence-led profession focused on prevention, efficiency, and public safety while remaining firmly grounded in our very important constitutional principles. That brings us to the guest today. I am super excited to have Aaron Cohen. You really can't look at the news or have him appear on news because he is such a important figure on terrorism and counterterrorism, and he speaks the truth. That's what I like about him as well, as he lays it out the way it should be done. He's had a trained career in special operations, an intelligence veteran, and has served in the counterterrorism space for over 2 decades. Again, he's one of the most recognized people on camera when it comes to law enforcement issues, counterterrorism issues, reoccurring guests on Fox News. You probably see him a lot there. He was on I remember seeing him back on Larry King when he was on all the time in Larry King and as a reoccurring guest. He's also an actor. He's been in numerous films, and he's trained many Hollywood stars on self-defense and close quarter battle techniques. He's the CEO and founder of Gideon AI. Gideon is an intelligence platform designed to help law enforcement detect, assess, and prioritize potential lone actor threats, and really as well as large conspiracy threats, because a lot of these lone actors may be working with others, but the overall conspiracy is not known to them even. So there may be a network of 50 people when they think they may be working by themselves or with one other. And this is an important concept. It fits into the evidence-based policing model. And I am super stoked to have him on board. So Aaron, welcome to America's Criminologist. Thanks so much for taking the time. It's really an honor for me to have you on the show.
Appreciate you having me on and letting me speak to your guests. It's not often I get a law enforcement professional that I get to speak with outside of the law enforcement space. So to be able to do it in the media world, it's refreshing. Grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We try to, we have about 57 minutes, so we try to get fairly in depth, which I think is important. I do a lot of radio and television as a guest myself, and you can't talk with any kind of efficacy on programs like this in a 5 or 7 minute sound.
We'll try and move it quick and hit these points here.
Yeah. So, Aaron, many Americans think terrorism and mass violence are primarily organized group activities, yet today we hear more and more about lone actors, and again, sometimes layered conspiracy threats. How has the threat environment changed over the past 20 years?
So 20 years ago, the threat environment, in my opinion, was largely dominated by organizations. So you had Al-Qaeda, you had ISIS, obviously we're still dealing with them. You have foreign terrorist networks, street gangs, obviously coming from the sheriff's world with a large or major county where you're coming from. Here in Los Angeles, where I live, structured groups with leadership, financing, recruitment pipelines is how I describe it, and command and control mechanisms. And today, the center of gravity, in my opinion, has shifted dramatically towards the lone actor. And so the internet has effectively democratized radicalization, I think is the most straightforward way to put it. A person no longer needs to join a terror organization to become dangerous, doctor. They just don't. You can find ideology, grievances, tactical information, validation, and community online without ever leaving their bedroom. And so I think what we're seeing today is the rise of the self-directed offender, is what I'm going to call him. And these are individuals who may never receive orders from anyone. They radicalize themselves, they build their own narratives, and they develop their own grievances. And increasingly, they move from thought to action without traditional indicators that law enforcement was trained to look for 20 years ago. And so the challenge isn't that these individuals are invisible. I want to make that clear. It's that they often exist in digital spaces that are moving faster than traditional investigative models. And so that's why I often say when I'm speaking to a major department, and we've got dozens and dozens of them across over 20 states now with my new AI platform, what I often say to them is that the internet is now the largest threat intelligence environment in human history.
Yeah, no question about it. And the thing is, it kind of goes with my feral man concept, is we have this wilding of humans that they have been radicalized through social media and social contagions. Some of them have the dark psychological traits because they've gotten into it so deep and so far that they can't get out of it, and they get reinforced. It's this constant reinforcement that's occurring on a positive sense because they're only, it's that cognitive bias where they're constantly
That's
bandwagon
right.
effect on each other. From your experience, what behavioral patterns tend to emerge before an individual commits a terrorist act, a school shooting, or workplace violence? There are certain markers that they may possess and do, and this is the importance of Gideon. But what are they most demonstrated?
So it's a good question. I think the most important thing that the public needs to understand is that the attacks rarely emerge out of nowhere. The idea of the lightning bolt attack is absolute nonsense. It's a myth, and what we typically see is progression, and it starts with grievance. And something happens that the individual perceives as unfair, humiliating, maybe threatening, or I guess the word would be intolerable. And so that grievance becomes fixation. The fixation becomes ideation. And then the ideation becomes research. That's the pipeline. And then the research becomes what we call the preparation phase. And the preparation then becomes the leakage, which is what we're seeing, the manifestos. We just saw one the other day with a shooting in Montreal, in Côte-de-Neige. And so eventually that pathway culminates in what we call the mobilization. The mobilization is the weapon gets loaded, the attack is underway. Now law enforcement is forced to respond. And so the specific details vary, but the behavioral pathway remains remarkably consistent across terrorism. Doesn't matter. School shootings, could be workplace violence, and whatever form the targeted violence takes shape in. So this is why modern threat assessment focuses on behavior and not the labels. And people can call themselves anything today, And so what matters is what they're doing.
I spend a lot of time on crime prevention through environmental design, CPTED strategies. One of the failures of CPTED is that we do not do enough behavioral analysis within the CPTED model. I'm going to make a pretty good assumption that Gideon AI can even do a better job in helping with CPTED assessments moving forward on particular corporations, schools that are unique to a certain area, because not all schools are the same, not all businesses are the same, not all football stadiums are the same. They all have a unique identifying footprint and activity based on the culture around them, the size of the city, all those other markers that may be going on. Is AI more than just law enforcement, but can be helped in actually the build out and future safer spaces?
I think AI is going to drip into all of it. So as long as you're focusing on the behavior, and that's one of the main differences between it's not one of the main differences. It's specifically how I built Gideon and what I designed it around, which is I'm not focusing on the ideology. I'm focusing on the behavior. The behavior doesn't care about the ideology, doesn't care whether you're an incel, whether you're a trans shooter, whether you're an Islamist. It doesn't care what you could be, a far left extremist, a far right extremist. The location doesn't matter either. So as long as you're following the behavioral pathway, what I laid out, you're going to catch the correct leakage. And we'll get into more of that as we kind of push through here, and I can sort of expand on that.
Right. Let's talk about Gideon specifically. So what is it exactly for the average listener and viewer? What's the best way to explain Gideon?
So Gideon is an AI-powered early warning intelligence platform designed to help law enforcement identify potential lone actor threats before violence occurs. That's the main definition of it. And the easiest way to think about it for your viewers, think about it as an early warning radar system. Most policing tools are built to investigate events after they've happened. Gideon's designed to identify behavioral indicators before the violence occurs. So, but I want to be clear, it doesn't replace investigators or detectives. It also doesn't replace threat assessment teams. It simply helps agencies identify signals that may otherwise go unseen. And so the goal here isn't prediction. The goal is earlier detection. That's the basic way to explain it.
And how does the platform function operationally? Is it on the cloud? It has to be unique to a server at the organization? How do officers and detectives use it? Is it best served by an intelligence analyst using this? How does that kind of application work?
So operationally, Gideon, there's no integration. It's its own server, and it sits on its own cloud-based setup. And what it basically does is it continuously analyzes publicly available online environments. Okay, so the platform is again looking for those behavioral indicators, but it's specifically for targeted violence pathways. You do not need to be a mega city with a 10-man intel team. You can be a 25 to 50-man agency, which is what we spoke about pre-interview here, which is the majority of the size of agencies. We're a force multiplier, and we've got thresholds to meet every budget and the challenge of these budgets. And so what Gideon does is it evaluates the patterns rather than isolated statements. This part's important, and it evaluates escalation. And so it's looking for context. So once you're an agency and you onboard and we put you on a pilot, you're going to have 60 days there just to soak in how the platform works. All the alerts are going to be delivered via email. You never have to log in. So Gideon is going to be a 24/7 operator online, hunting and evaluating context. There's no keywords associated here. And when we find behavior that hits a certain threshold, the platform then generates an alert for review. Someone on our team, a human analyst, will then assess the information. We'll add context if needed, and then we'll begin to look for attribution. And without attribution, it's passive. You got nothing. Intel is only as good as the location. But the problem with the internet is that it's the largest anonymous threat intelligence environment. So ultimately, law enforcement, once we get attribution, will decide whether further assessment is warranted. And the key point is that there's a human that remains in the loop at every stage. And then what we'll do is we'll push that out to our network of partner agencies. After we've routed it to the correct agency, it may go to a fusion center, may go to a real-time crime center, it may go directly to that agency, or there's no location or attribution or not enough exigence for the platform to give us an emergency disclosure or one of our partner agencies an emergency disclosure. Then we'll go ahead and push it to the FBI by default. We'll let it sit on their lap, and then they come in and take a crack at it. But the point is that we're able to surface a tremendous amount of exigent posts with very imminent threat language and get it to the correct jurisdiction in under an hour, which is unheard of. And so open source intelligence, nothing classified on here. We're not going into any private chat groups. If it's not online publicly, we're not interested. By the way, these guys aren't hiding. This isn't ISIS, 2003 or 4. And so that's basically how the platform operates and how the mechanism functions in a nutshell.
And you mentioned fusion centers. So for the average person, they may not know, there's fusion centers in regions throughout the United States to help gain intelligence, identify intelligence, share information, intelligence back and forth. Quite frankly, a lot of it's historic and out of date because it's only.
Well, they're relying on tips.
Yeah, it's going to rely.
So
on
without
that.
tips, the fusion centers are dead in the water. In fact, most law enforcement relies on tips.
Exactly, that's exactly right.
So my operational goal with the whole platform here is to move the response time farther upstream. So right now, law enforcement is positioned to be able to respond to an attack. And the training has gotten better than ever. I spent 20 years in the training business. When I got out of the Israeli Special Forces, I was training SWAT teams for 15 years. So having been on the reactive side of this thing, I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So by looking at the AI, looking at all the data from the Secret Service and the FBI in Israel, so there's got to be a way to operationalize all of the data from all these past lone actor attacks. So the goal is just to move the response time further up the timeline, left of boom. It's a little cliche, but it's the term. But the fact is that, again, the internet is the largest battlefield today. If you're not in that space, you're reacting. But we can do so much better than that. And so now we are. We've moved the timeline up, and we're getting agencies signal for the first time in the history of public safety. So I can spend hours talking about this. It's a very exciting time to be in this space, to really lead with this now what I'm calling intelligence-based policing. It's kind of what I'm framing it as.
Yeah, no, it could be something as new as the advent of DNA. I mean, that's how important what you're working on
I agree.
can be.
I
I
agree.
mean, it's a
I
major
agree.
threshold. And you mentioned behavioral ontology, which is that, it's that relation side, human action, behaviors, those kinds of things. But law enforcement also has volumes and volumes of intel inside dead reports that they're not able to access because
Right.
does your system, can it go in and cultivate that information out as well as doing the behavior ontology side?
So it's an interesting question. We can't take what's in their data,
Hmm.
but let me back it up a little bit. So Israel learned something I want to talk about the ontology. An important piece that you hit there. Israel learned something very important through decades of counterterrorism operations. Behavior, it matters the most. And I know we hit this for a bit, but people become obsessed with the ideology. The ideology alone is a very poor predictor of violence. I want to be clear about that. Many people hold extreme views, but they never commit crimes. And so the more important question, in my opinion, and what the ontology of the engine is built on is the individual escalating? Are they becoming fixated? Are they researching attacks? And if you look at the data, over 85% of these attackers that we've seen just over the last couple of years have leaked something. I think it's over 80 something percent. Are they mobilizing? A behavioral ontology is simply a structured way of evaluating those observable behaviors, if that makes sense. So it basically just gives a framework for understanding how people move towards violence, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's really one of the biggest pieces here. And one of the challenges moving forward will be, and I know the platforms are getting better at policing themselves for that imminent behavioral leakage, is moving away from leakage that isn't just focused on imminent threats, but on escalatory language, which will be the challenge because we have laws that we want to follow here. So we're surfacing both. Anyone can route or find a red alert. I want to shoot up the school. I wanted this. I wanted that. We get tons of those. But the real intel, in my opinion, lies in the escalation language, which is farther upstream. It's farther away from the mobilization cycle. And so that's my goal. My goal is to get as many agencies, thousands of them, to understand what that escalation language looks like, because the goal of the platform is early contact. Whether it's a wellness check, it doesn't matter. It's early contact. Early contact creates friction. Friction disrupts pathway. And the sooner you can get it or farther away from that imminent last post where I'm going to go shoot up the school, which may be too late, how do we get them earlier in the cycle as they're escalating before that mobilization language? So that's going to be the future as we kind of move this thing out and continue to build it out. And as the AI gets smarter, it's exciting to see it getting better, which it is.
And you mentioned force multiplier. We have diminished ranks, especially in larger blue cities where it may take us decades to make up for the loss of officers that have occurred either through retirements, early retirements, just quitting, or purposeful reduction in force that's been done by leftist mayors and people like that. This is an important component as a force multiplier. You mentioned it earlier. Just how important of a role does it play in adding to the manpower? If I'm a police chief of a 50-person department in a city of about 30,000, how can this play a role in force multiplication for my team?
So what you're asking is agencies that are struggling with the staffing shortages right now due to all the political fallout.
Correct.
It's a good question. I think that the reality is that most agencies are being asked to do more with fewer people. I think we both agree. And at the same time, the problem is that the threat environment is expanding. So 10 years ago, an investigator wasn't expected to monitor dozens of social media platforms and forums and online communities. And today, that's part of the actual environment. So the challenge is scale, right? So no agency can hire enough analysts to manually review the entire internet. So technology becomes a core force multiplier, in my opinion. And so not only will we be able to, our platforms like Gideon able to help fill those gaps. But I think the goal and what we've been able to do here, and we've got several universities, we've got several small colleges. The goal is helping that small intelligence team or small agency with no intelligence team who's never even submitted an emergency disclosure to a platform based on an exigent post that was surfaced and that we may have forwarded to them. It gives them the ability for that team to function like a much larger one. So the best analogy, I think, is radar. Pilots still fly planes. Radar simply helps them see farther. I built Gideon to serve a similar purpose, if that makes sense. So we're able to act as a force multiplier for agencies who may have 15 sworn, tiny jurisdiction, maybe 1 or 2 deputies or officers on duty. And so just having access to the platform is putting these tiny departments upstream, and we're able to build them accordingly so it doesn't strain their budget. But the fact is if you look at the statistical data, these lone actors are popping off everywhere. This is not a large city problem, is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
These are popping off everywhere.
Look at all the ones that just got arrested on the FIFA.
Everywhere.
They
Everywhere.
were Nebraska,
That's right.
Oklahoma. I mean, they were, it's smaller, and they're going to hide. The interesting part that you have, as you were talking a lot about the terrorism component, but criminals are known for leakage as well. So this could play a role not only in terrorism threats, but understanding transnational crime, other crime that's occurring. Gideon could be used for those purposes as well, to find out criminality, correct? Not just terrorism.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a good point. The model of the AI can certainly be oriented everywhere, but at the moment, Gideon is purely a counterterrorism platform built and designed for lone actor interdiction. The reason why is because that's my background, but I can assure you that we're seeing things involving internet crimes against children, which is connected to the larger transnational criminal syndicates out there. So there's definitely room to be able to expand the operational scope. But for now, we're focusing on that lone actor terrorism because that, in my opinion, is the imminent threat right now that just seems out of control, that agencies can't put their finger on because they don't know that Gideon exists yet. But they're learning fast, and we're expanding quickly. So we're probably one of the fastest growing law enforcement tech verticals in the world right now, as far as getting to agencies. The word is spreading. Cops, they talk.
Oh yeah.
So the word is spreading.
Once they like something, they like it.
Well, what do they say? The only thing that cops hate more than change is what? Something new.
Something new.
Yeah. So you got to really make this simple for them, and we've done that. So it's spreading quickly, and we're able to really. They're very impressed once they're on the platform and seeing what's upstream. It's just it's a completely new world they're seeing that they had no idea existed. But ICAC and the rest of it's coming soon.
Yeah. Aaron, can you stay for our second segment coming up?
Sure.
All right. We'll be right back with Aaron Cohen. Very interesting topic on the use of Gideon. You're listening to America's Criminologist. We'll continue right after this commercial break. Hi folks, Dr. Currie Myers here to let you know that my new show, it's called America's Criminologist with Dr. Currie Myers. Every Tuesday at 1 p.m. as a former state trooper, special agent, sheriff of a major county, I will offer sharp insights into the pressing issues shaping American society today. I'll have guests, news, and my insights as an applied criminologist throughout the 1 hour show. So criminals and the progressive politicians that allow them to fester, beware, because this show is directed at you. America's Criminologist every Tuesday at 1 p.m. on KMET.
Take KMET Radio with you everywhere you go by downloading the new updated free iPhone, Android phone, and tablet remote app found in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store. Listen live to your favorite shows on all of your remote devices. Information can be found on the KMET Radio website at KMET1490am.com. That web address again, KMET1490am.com. Download your free new KMET remote app today. Go to the Apple App Store or Google Play Store for your free new KMET Radio remote mobile app today.
We're chatting with our guest, always safety first, 811 Megaphone Man.
Call 811 before you dig.
You never stray from your mission of letting homeowners, landscapers, and excavators know you should always call 811 before you dig.
Call 811.
Call for both small and big jobs. And 2 working days in advance?
811.
Any parting words? And I'm guessing they will be.
Call 811 before you dig.
Brought to you by Southwest Gas.
811.
As you know, I've been talking about standing up for our country, doing something. These big box stores stayed open while the little guys closed. Will our voices be heard? Does voting with our dollars work? PatriotSwitch.com gives patriots the power to walk away from the big box stores forever. Stop supporting the enemies of freedom now. That's why PatriotSwitch.com was created. For those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com.
Hey, my friends, this is Dr. Currie Myers, America's Criminologist. I have a new sponsor for my show named Real Resilience. That's REEL, a transformative program helping inmates prepare for successful reentry. It uses inspirational films and guided discussions. Real Resilience teaches practical tools to build resilience. It's really an important tool, Real Resilience, because reentry isn't just release, it's a second chance done right. All right, welcome back to America's Criminologist. Don't forget to check out my work on Substack at drcurriemyers.substack.com. We're joined by Aaron Cohen discussing Gideon, a threat detection platform designed to help law enforcement identify potential lone actor threats before violence occurs. Aaron is the CEO and founder of the organization. Okay, Aaron, let's talk a little bit about some critics who like to label this stuff pre-crime. That word gets out. I think that pre-crime, the Minority Reports stands out for civil libertarians. How does one address those kinds of critics and let them know that, like anything, boundaries are important, and this will have boundaries as well?
So it's an important question. I think the biggest misunderstanding that people hear when they hear the word predictive and assume we're trying to predict the future. We're not. We're detecting behavior, and there's a very big difference. We're not identifying people who might someday commit a crime. There's no halos here. This isn't Steven Spielberg. It's not Tom Cruise. That was a film. This is in 1984. We're identifying, I want to make it clear, publicly observable behaviors that research has repeatedly associated with violent pathways. We've taken over 35 years of data from the Secret Service and the FBI, and all we've done is operationalize it to look for the same exact behavior. In fact, Gideon is comprised and built the core of the wet engine of over 100 threat behaviors specifically associated with violence. And so, to be clear, law enforcement does this every day. You would know this. Threat assessment teams already do this every day. School threat assessment teams already do this every day. We're simply helping law enforcement identify information earlier and at scale. And I tell people this isn't Minority Report. This is behavioral threat assessment supported by technology. Very different things.
Let's look at something like the 9/11 attacks. There was leakage being done by those attackers. There was leakage. It was law enforcement stopped some of them for violations of law. They were taking some classes in how to fly airplanes, not land them, but fly airplanes. Would your system have been able to help identify that kind of leakage? To be able to prevent that kind of event?
Not back in 2001, because the internet was still
in today's system where they would be kind of doing the same thing, would this be a process that would be caught easier with your system?
I agree that any terrorism that happens today, there's some type of leakage online. So to directly answer your question, if there was a 9/11 style attack, which I don't think is what today's generation of terrorism is going to look like. Again, all of the radicalization is happening digitally. Most of the radicalization is not ideological. So this isn't pre 9/11 Islamists with their grievances towards the White House and the old, get America out of the Middle East. But regardless of the ideology, there is leakage. There's always leakage. The DC shooter posted a manifesto. The Minneapolis shooter posted a 10-minute tactical video online with all the magazines with Trump written on them and on the tactical gear. The shooter that we just saw in Cote-de-Neige in Montreal, 100-page manifesto. So the reason why all of this material is catchable, and the reason why a platform like Gideon is able to grab it, is because today, due to the internet and the thousands of bot farms being put out there by China and Iran and Turkey, which is designed to tear Americans apart, tear America's relations from Israel apart, infuse us with all of these other radical ideologies on both sides of the political spectrum. Think about that. Our enemies, and I'm not going to get conspiracy here, have already fired shots into our country without having stepped foot here. Right. They're able to spike the comments section of these posts and cause them to shoot up to the top of those algorithms, which creates the rage bait. And then the media platforms or the social media platforms reward rage, not facts. And that's what's pulling this country apart. And so all of that material is being posted. Most of it's being posted long before the manifesto, and it's being posted in the form of grievance. It's being posted in the form of ideation. Give you an example. Suicide ideation is one of the major early warning radar blips that Gideon is hunting. The reason why is because today's lone actor, the goal is not homicide. If you think about what they statistically do to themselves after they've opened fire and the bodies are dead on the ground, what ends up happening the moment that attack team or law enforcement unit makes entry? By the time they get to them, they end up doing what? They end up killing themselves. Mm-hmm. They end up killing themselves. And the reason why is because homicide was never the goal. Suicide was always the goal. Homicide was just a way to give meaning to their own self-destruction. So suicide ideation is one of the critical early warning intel nuggets. And that's what Gideon is hunting systematically. And we're trying to get it before it pivots outwards. And that's where that early escalation warning comes up. And that's why it matters. There's a major, major mental health crisis that's percolating. And we're seeing it unfold in the wilds on the internet. So we're hunting it. We're monitoring it. And the moment and it's being posted out in the public, it's not being hidden in these chat rooms and signal groups. Those signal groups start to merge, those private groups start to operationalize once the online radicalization has cemented, once enough people who are willing to die because they've been radicalized have come together. And as they start to pivot outwards, that's when they start forming these little groups like we saw with the UFC 250 attack that was thwarted brilliantly by the FBI, I might add, and the agencies and the Secret Service that was involved. And so the signal is there. Doc, and I'm going to say that, yes, we will find it. We're going to hunt down every single bit of it, and we're going to route it as quickly as possible. And we may not get to it sooner than later, but we're going to do our best to try and get to as much of it as we can. And the more agencies we onboard on the platform, the quicker we can move that intel, because now we're creating this national early actor interdiction network. It'll be the largest intelligence network of law enforcement professionals ever. And that's really the product. That's the moat. When you've got thousands of agencies who are professionals, small, big, medium, doesn't matter, fusion centers, real-time crime centers, mega city agencies, small town police departments, some of the best investigators, as you know, are some of these small towns. They're talented. You know, it doesn't matter where you are. And so I believe that we can get to them. We're going to try and get to every single one of them. And the goal here is just to keep building this thing out, getting the network larger, getting the AI even tighter and the language learning model even tighter. And then eventually starting to bring on federal partnerships to help us continue to expand it. I think it's all preventable, Doc.
Yeah, and these lone actors that are out there also get radicalized by someone, either through the internet, social contagions, or we have cells operating in this country where their job is to try to radicalize. We see this on the college campuses. It seems like there's always someone on the college campus has some connection to either the Chinese or Islamists in some way, back and forth, or perhaps some communist idealization. So we have these cells that are operating as well. Some of them are a lot quieter, and their main job is to try to recruit operators and foot soldiers to be able to go out and do this lone actor work. So
Well, they're already doing it. They don't even have
Yeah.
to be here. So
Yeah.
if you got a bot farm with 1,000 cell phones spiking
Right.
anti-American rhetoric into the comments section and spiking anti-American content, then what you've got when you've got a 19 or 20-year-old student in college, like Mangione, for instance, who's what we would classify as an anti-capitalist actor, or you've got the recent shooter up in Montreal just yesterday, who initially was labeled as an incel before the full manifesto was released, but now they're saying he was a far left extremist, anti-Israel, anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-Trump. Again, regardless of the ideology, the fact is that something hit his feed. This guy did not meet an Al-Qaeda recruiter in some alley. You know what he met, Doc? He met an algorithm. So nobody has to be here.
Okay.
All of the comments can get spiked by thousands of bot farms outside of our shores and get right into the mobile phones of these kids. And guess what happens? You keep staring at that phone long enough, and the parents aren't going to take them off the phone. Keep staring at that phone long enough, and what's going to happen? You're going to have a kid who eventually crosses over, who was already suicidal, now starts to pivot into homicidal ideation. And once you've got that convergence or that outwards pivot, now you've got yourself violent thoughts getting posted, homicidal ideation being posted, a history of suicide ideation being posted. I want those posts, and I want to know where that actor is, and I want to get that information to that agency as quickly as possible so that they can make early contact, because 80% of these actors, in my opinion, don't even know why they're being radicalized. In fact, if you watch what they're saying, they have no idea what they're talking about. Nobody understands the history of anything that's going on today. It's absolutely nuts. So let's get early contact, get those law enforcement officers to those doors, and let's get some wellness checks going. And you'd be surprised when you look at the history here, got a lot of mental health and suicide ideation long before the gun was ever loaded. So again, critical intel nugget. We're going to hunt it all, and we're going to get it to these agencies as quickly as possible.
You know, you mentioned the importance of this could be to really change the law enforcement world when it comes to intelligence gathering and being able to assess better and more quickly. But you have to have still some boots on the ground to be able to go do these interviews, knock on the doors.
That's right.
Do you foresee at some point there be a team that is dedicated to doing that work specifically at a department where their main job is to go do those initial
knock and talks?
Knock and talks.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think given the scale and the aggressive growth of radicalization online, on the fact that America's enemies are able to get into these algorithms and spin these kids up to the point where they want to load up a weapon and open fire, my contention is that local, municipal, counties, not just federal. Now, most of them have criminal intelligence capabilities. They've got nodes, they've got investigator, they've got analysts now. It's getting better. It's been getting better for the last decade. And Intel's been seeping into that to the space more and more on the law enforcement side. But I can tell you that at my agency, where I serve in the Southeast, I've been a reservist there coming up on 20 years. Started off on the training side. We just stood up the first ever lone actor interdiction unit. The goal of the unit is to be able to operationalize the types of behavior that my system is already using, to be able to hunt down that signal, to determine and make sure that those actors are not in our jurisdiction, if that makes sense. That's just basic detective deduction or deductible reasoning, if I'm not mistaken, from your world.
Yeah.
So we've already stood up probably the first ever local lone actor intelligence and counterterrorism specific unit on the local level to be able to hunt down that signal, make sure that it's not in our region, of, I'll say, 500,000 citizens, but then move it to the right jurisdiction as quickly as possible. And I look at this as digital mutual aid. You know, if you need something from a county, Sheriff, you know this. If you need something from a county, you guys don't have access to aerial assets, but you've got a hiker who's down. You've got mutual aid agreements with those surrounding jurisdictions, right?
Right.
We need to create that capability and that culture for the digital threat space as well, which means my contention is that local and county state agencies already have these because they're working with the fusion centers. But really, this is a local problem because these attackers are going to pop off in those local backyards. I think that lone actor interdiction intel-driven units, whether it's one investigator or 5 or just one, if that's all you can muster, to get to the internet and use tools like Gideon, and there's other great ones. There's Data Miner. There's a lot of different tools now that real-time crime centers are using to be able to get to that signal early enough, and make sure that it's not in your area of responsibility, and then learn how to move it quickly. That to me is going to be the future of intel-based policing. I don't know of any other platforms, Sheriff, that do specifically what Gideon was built to do. Most of the platforms will tell you either what happened in the past, like Palantir, so you can put together a mosaic of how to get bin Laden in the future. Some of them will tell you what's going on right now, and they'll monitor Twitter feeds so that you can get response to that specific area if it's near you. I believe that we're the only platform that's actively trying to tell you who someone is becoming. And that's what makes us unique. We're only focused on what will potentially transpire. And if it doesn't turn into anything, I say great. But the good news is that somebody who's spiraling in suicide ideation, who's pivoting into homicide ideation through obsessive intrusive thoughts and has a history of mental illness, let's make contact. What's the problem? Get them the help they need. But the problem is that if we can't get the post to the correct agency, there's no case. Sheriff, there's no case number. So how do we start the case? We've got to get the posts. We need thousands of these agencies in this country helping us move them to the correct place. And we do that through emergency disclosures, requests to the platforms, and getting these kids the help they need. They still don't understand what's happening to them. It's okay, we do. And I say the more early contact, the better.
Yeah, and it's that breakdown of those 3 important tiers that I talked about: faith, family, and formation. They don't have those.
That's right.
They haven't been formed correctly. They don't have a family life, and they don't have a faith life. So
and their networks are online. Honestly, you've got a whole generation of kids. It's different than you and I. I mean, their entire community is happening on Discord now. It's happening on Reddit. You know, it's a different time. They're not using the internet to share their wins. They're using the internet to make connections. And if you've got nihilistic, violent extremist groups infiltrating these environments, creating self-harm communities and riling up the suicide ideation, you're creating an entire generation of killers. I don't know how else to put that without being totally honest. You want my? No, that's my Israeli hat. You're creating killers online right now, and we've got to get to them and talk to these kids first and pull them out of that environment as quickly as possible. Yeah.
I know you recently spoke to the National Major County Sheriff's Association. I was a member of that as well. It's within the National Sheriff's Association. It's a very important organization. I think that sheriffs are in a unique position because of expediency. They have the ability to implement things a lot quicker than a police chief who may have to build a budget in the future, or they just have the autonomy.
And they can form that policy.
They can form things quickly, and that's what I liked about being a sheriff. I encourage sheriffs to put this to the top of the agenda, because working in connection with each other as major county sheriffs filter down to other sheriffs across the country is vital and key to being successful in being able to have contact information that you can share. Again, you talked about it could be a small county, but the ability to say, I know Sheriff such and such in this small county, going to him or her and be able to be actionable because it's not in my jurisdiction.
And Sheriff, any agency has the same incredible capability on my platform. And I know, I'll give you an example. We talked when I spoke at the. I've got a great relationship with Sheriff Mike Bouchard from Oakland County.
Yeah, good man. He was president when I was.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Mike is a good buddy of mine. I'm honored to have him in my orbit. He's been instrumental in helping to move information, helping to shape, opening doors for us. He was the one who brought me out to DC in February to speak to the intelligence commanders subcommittee, which is where I spoke. And I can tell you that being in that room and being amongst the 100, of the major county sheriffs and their intel commanders was eye-opening. They all want to know how to do this. Everybody's starving for the solution. If you're a sheriff out there, let me plug real quick, Sheriff. If you're a sheriff out there, get on my platform. I'll put you up here for 60 days, no obligation. Just get upstream and see what we're seeing. And if it makes sense for you operationally, which I promise you it will, then we'll get you guys on an affordable license to be able to stay on the platform. Because without it, you're going to be dead in the water. So if you're out there and you're listening, large, major county, if you've got 5 sworn and you're in, I don't know where, I don't care, call me. You'll have the same capability as a large agency with a 10-man intel team. By the way, a 10 or 20-man or 50-man intel team, and we've got some of the largest agencies, Sheriff, on the platform now. I still ask them the same question when I'm briefing them on the platform and onboarding them.
Yeah.
How's scraping the entire internet working out for you?
Right.
It's not. It's impossible. You can have 100 analysts sitting on an entire floor in a high rise, and you're still not going to be able to hit the 1 million posts per month that are out there. So we've got to use the technology, but we've got to have the agencies partnered so that they can get into the network and create the first ever lone actor national early warning network, which is really my vision of the platform. The moat, the sale to Axon or Motorola in 72 months from now is the moat. The ability to have 2,500 to 5,000 of the finest intelligence teams, major city, tiny agency, don't care. They're all talented. The ability to be able to move intel quickly. And I'll tell you, the longer you're on the platform, Sheriff, the better these guys are getting at understanding behavioral threat science. Because that is a big difference between seeing 10 alerts and seeing 1,000 alerts at the end of 12 months. Man, do you learn a lot. And I've had sheriffs call me, under sheriffs call me and say, Aaron, the signal is incredible. Man, am I learning a lot. It's all just kind of clicking and making sense. And so, Sheriff, I've got to educate 5,000 agencies here, and I don't have a lot of time to do it. I've got to move quick. It's a very dangerous time right now. So the key here is speed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really been foundationally important that the sheriff that you county that you reside in, you're a part of that group, and you've been able to almost do a beta, with them to be able to show its efficacy. So you're ahead of that.
I couldn't be more grateful for my sheriff. FBI National Academy grad, forward thinking, investigator minded, absolute rock star. He's been great to me for 20 years since the first training course I came out and gave to them. To onboarding the agency, and I'm out there several times a year. And now to be able to stand up the first intelligence and counterterrorism unit for the agency has been tremendous, as you mentioned, to be able to really wet test Gideon to make sure that we're moving through false positives. I mean, look, if you don't have that analysis and the human element and the ability to be able to test it in a real environment, you're just going to get a ton of noise. So, I mean, you can have the word gun surfacing from music lyrics. You can have the word bomb resonating from slang. You know what I mean? So you really got to flush all this stuff out. So very grateful to have my agency on board. Grateful for my sheriff and my leadership and my captain and all of them. They've been awesome.
Aaron, what's the biggest threat facing America today?
For decades, we've invested heavily in systems designed to respond after violence. It's important. It'll always be, but the internet has changed the threat landscape. And today, attackers leave a behavioral trail before they mobilize. And so the opportunity for public safety is learning how to identify that trail. The biggest threat today is the internet. It's the largest threat intelligence environment in the world. If you're law enforcement, you've got to start orienting towards that threat space, but it's doable. Coming from Israel, I can tell you, creativeness is the key to solve all problems. And that's what we're doing. Join my network and let's stop the next one together.
So important. Is there any way people can follow your work, Aaron?
Yeah, you can. If you guys are interested, if there's any law enforcement out there listening to me, you want to get on a pilot, just get me on LinkedIn. Just DM me directly, and I'll have the head of my agency partnerships reach out to you guys. We'll get you on a platform super quick. LinkedIn, Aaron Cohen, get me up there, and I'll communicate with you directly. No ego. Just ping me, and we'll get you guys set up and on the platform and upstream immediately. And I look forward to you guys reaching out.
Aaron, this is one of the most important concepts in law enforcement in recent history. I thank you very much for coming on the show and being a part of it and sharing your mission with us. So thank you very much for coming on.
Sheriff, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good, folks.
We're going to share some case studies soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, folks, thanks so much for watching the show. Check out Aaron's work if you're in law enforcement following, and check out my work at drcurriemyers.substack.com. Stay safe, and we will see you next week.
Justice